Hi there. Before we get started, I just wanted to give you a heads up on two things. The first is you can still get 15% off at karamacollection.com. That's Karama collection.com with the code McCoy16SS. And that is only good through the end of this week, through the end of September. So be sure to head on over there. There's amazing handmade jewelry, textiles, leather products, awesome for Christmas presents. So go on over there and you can get 15% off. Also, right now through October 4th, you get 15% off the Brave Shirt Shop. So head to beckylmccoy.com/shop and use the code SAVE15 now and you'll get 15% off. I just added a bunch of new products. So there's sweatshirts, t-shirts for men, women, and kids, travel mugs, water bottles, all sorts of things so you can show off how brave you are. All right, here we go. Now is episode 26. I'm Becky L. McCoy, and you're listening to Stories of Unfolding Grace, the podcast about grace during unexpected times. You'll hear from real people dealing with hard stuff, and I hope you'll feel encouraged that you can bravely live through hard stuff too. This is episode 26. I'm talking with my friend Della Gallagher about her divorce. She had a pulmonary embolism as a complication from her cystic fibrosis, and just what does it look like to live when life doesn't look anything at all like you had hoped it would. I'm here today with Della Gallagher. We actually got connected because we have a ton of mutual friends and we missed each other by I think literally a week and a half or 2 weeks.
Right.
Yeah. So when we moved up to Connecticut, Della had just left. So that was kind of a bummer, but now we get to be friends. So that's awesome. Della, why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the challenges that you faced over the last few years?
I'm going to say, I'll probably just say this past year, I've had a fun life, definitely. But, I'd say just the past couple years, especially this last year in Connecticut and before, it was a tough one, definitely. Goodness. Moved up there with my ex-husband he was my husband at the time, my now ex-husband. Don't want to say too much, about him because I still love and respect him, but, he just kind of, when we got up there, just kind of made the decision of that he loved me, that I was a great wife, but that he was just kind of done being married. And that was just a tough time. I mean, I was new to a place. I was, didn't know anybody, was getting into a dance studio, things like that. And so I just felt very alone, and I was very confused because though I could tell that he wasn't feeling right about things, I didn't expect it to go where it did. So, I went through the grieving process, fought, ran, tried every trick in the book, and eventually moved out. And then actually in January, like you said, where we missed each other by a couple of weeks, I thought I was like, okay, I'm living on my own, I'll be doing my thing, independent. And then I actually got 2 pulmonary embolisms in my lungs, and so I came home to North Carolina just to recover for a couple weeks. And then I actually had a bowel blockage, TMI, but part of the CF. I had a big old mucus ball in my tummy, and from them removing that, my appendix, I actually got respiratory failure and was put on, I was ventilated, I was intubated, and I was put on a ventilator.
Wow.
And just since then, life took a complete 180, 360, all degree levels turned. So where I'm now, where I was dancing full time before, just a month later, I was barely able to walk to the bathroom door without oxygen and turning blue.
Yeah.
So
give listeners a little bit of the background on, pulmonary embolism and all these things are like, those are big deals for anybody, but why are they especially dangerous for you?
Well, I have cystic fibrosis. So CF is a genetic disease, affects the lungs and digestive system. So pretty much, or as I tell the kids, I have lots of boogers in my lungs, and my oxygen, you breathe in fresh air, and I just get some extra fresh air.
Yeah.
And then a lot of digestive problems. So my lungs have already been weak, and when I was at the dance studio, I'd have to, take things slow, take breaks, but I was able to do it. Maybe, probably just because I was stubborn, but, either way. I'm like, lungs, you're doing me now. And then my lungs just kind of were like, nope, we're done now. So.
Yeah, I decided that was over.
Yeah.
So how did you react emotionally to so much of life changing all in one short period of time?
I did not handle it well at first. That's actually part of where I'd be honest about that, because I had a tough time. I withdrew from people, and I was embarrassed. I didn't want to tell people, about what my ex had decided. I felt like it was a reflection on me, and I spent that time, I handled it horribly. I made lists of every one of my faults so I could see which one was why he was done and divorced. And so I had a tough time with it. I shut down. I tried to pretend like everything was okay. I did things to try and get his attention, which wasn't good. I kind of jokingly say I went middle child syndrome, where he wasn't responding to good, so I tried to act out to get his attention. But I still tried, that was actually when we got more involved with I got more involved with Shoreline Church, because I realized, I didn't have many people. I had some great ladies at the dance studio who, helped me out through that. And between that and the Shoreline, that's literally all I knew. I did have one where I just broke. I had a suicide attempt where I was like, all right, I woke up the next morning and I'm like, what? It didn't work. I'm here. So, it took me a little bit. I'm a stubborn learner. God made me hard-headed, and I have to learn everything for myself. And so when that happened, it was okay. But I think what I had the hardest time with was it was actually when I came home and I was stuck. I was physically stuck.
Right, because you're back down in North Carolina now.
I am. I'm back down in North Carolina. I'm still unable to work. That's been a tough acceptance. So my lungs are better than what they were in February when they failed, but I'm nowhere near where I used to be. When I came home, that was truly when I started handling things. When I was up in Connecticut, I was able to hide behind the dance, and like, God is great. God's taking care of me, which sounds bad. Like I was hiding behind that, but I was using that, I'm going to church and I have the Bible study. I can walk to church. I have a cute apartment. God's good. I put together a bookshelf and open a bottle of wine by myself. I'm great. I can do this. And I got home, and that was when I realized life sucked. And that was okay.
Yeah.
That it was okay for me to be mad at my ex and to have questions. It was okay to be angry at my body and, what happened. But it wasn't until I was able to have no distractions where I realized that was okay. I remember I woke up from the ventilator being drugged up, and I was just like, if I learned nothing in this past year, I learned that I can trust no one, not even my own body. So, all right, God, let's talk. Not saying that he gave me the pulmonary embolisms, all that stuff, but, I was like, I'm obviously in a place now where you are literally the only thing I can trust if I can trust in anything. So let's go.
Yeah. Isn't it terrible that sometimes it takes us that much to finally get to that point? Because I'm the same way too. Like, okay, everything else is gone. I guess I'll trust you.
Exactly. And, I'm not even mad at God, because that's how I am in everyday life with things. It just takes, I'm like, oh, it's like a huge slap in the face. It'll be 10 times and it'll just be like, oh, that's it. And it's like, that's how I am. And so, but it was good. I spent every day, where I was able to, I realized I was so angry at God where I wanted to take him into a boxing ring and just beat at him and cry at him and beat him up and just hi God. But then I wanted to take him out for ice cream afterwards and say thank you.
Right. That's awesome.
But that's been how I have felt, you know. And
I can totally identify with that.
Yeah, and I learned that was okay.
Yeah.
And so just like, yeah, where I'm like, God, I'm not okay with this, but but I am grateful, but I'm like, no, like, this is not at all what I thought we had planned. Like, God, I thought we had a plan.
Yeah. What did you struggle with most?
I think I struggled with just why. I'm a big why girl, or I try not to be. I remember there was some poem we read in like elementary school, like, don't ask why, or why this, why that, and yeah, I think it was just the why of it all. I didn't get what God's plan was in this. Because I didn't, like I said, I don't think for a second that God was like, boom, I'm going to strike you with bad lungs now and, pulmonary embolisms and no husband,
Right.
I just struggled with the why and how it wasn't fair. I didn't want it to happen to anyone else, but I sure as heck didn't want it to happen to me either.
Right, yeah.
But I was like, I just try to live a quiet, like, and if you know me, I'm very loud and blah, 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 but like, I do strive, even though for being an open person, I strive to live a quiet, drama-free, normal adult life.
Yeah.
I just felt like I was plucked up from North Carolina to Connecticut, and then alone, and I'm like, oh my gosh, now what? And then I thought, I was like, okay, I have this. And then it was just back to, nope. God was like, no, you ain't got this. And I'm like,
yeah.
And it was tough. And so I'm a planner. That's, I think, one of my biggest things is that I'm a planner. So
I would totally high five you right now if I could, if we weren't on Skype.
Such a planner. It's a problem in my life. And I'm okay with God's plan. Even if it's not what I want, but he just needs to let me know what it is.
Yes, I've said that so many times.
That's all. That's all I ask. He can do what he wants, and I'll go with it, but I need to know what it is so I can put in my calendar, like, okay, this day I'm going to make a mistake, but I'll learn from it, like, 2 days later,
right,
things like
that. It's all good. I get so excited to see people choosing to live bravely and authentically. Each week on Tuesdays and Fridays, I host a Facebook Live event to share more stories of people living bravely, and I want to hear your story too. Join us at facebook.com/Becky L. McCoy. I can only share so much with you here on the podcast, but you can read my story and learn more about living bravely and authentically at my blog, BeckyLMcCoy.com. Stop by and sign up to receive my monthly newsletter. It includes book recommendations and blog posts and podcast episodes you may have missed. Check the show notes for details. So I'm using this definition of grace as being good things that happen during really challenging times. So how do you feel like grace showed up over the last year?
Oh my gosh. So this is where and it's taken to like just a couple months ago for me to really look back and see the grace. And so this is something where I have a hard time saying it because I'm like, oh no, I'm not. I'm like setting myself up for something else crazy to happen. But I am so grateful for what I went through. Mm-hmm. Because of what God's grace has given me and the blessings. Like, I really am. When I was in Connecticut, a lot of bad and terrible things happened. But, I met, my amazing boss, Jessica, at the dance studio, and Talia. I met people who took me in and loved me and, who gave me the Christian, not even just a Christian, but the God-following, hey, Della, you need to get it together. Yeah. Like, you are still legally married. He's presenting you divorce papers, but you're still married, and so with, I had people who adopted me and loved me, the small group and Shoreline Community Church. And I'm not just saying, like, I'm not, like, endorsing, Shoreline. Yeah. Like, shut up.
No, there are plenty of wonderful churches in Connecticut, but...
This podcast is brought to you by Shoreline. No, that was the first time I had truly experienced what God's unconditional love was through people. And not just for me either, but for my ex. And that really meant a lot to me. My ex, he's shut himself away from everybody, but they still kept trying. And that just meant a lot to me because I do love my ex, and and I respect him, and I want him to have the best life and have people who love him and him to love others. And so I had that. I learned how to have a relationship with God that wasn't the Southern Baptist in your face. We do this, like, you're a Christian because it's a culture thing. I learned how to have a relationship with God for myself. No matter where I was at. When I came home from the hospital, actually, ever since that happened, I have the best relationship with my sisters that I never had before. That was something where I just feel like it took a lot of heartache. It's hard to not, because my sister, it was actually a great life for my sisters. My older sister had her first baby, and my younger sister got married. And so I just feel like with all that, and then my joyous occasions of divorce and near death, it bonded us together. But it did, like, because it's just, I try and pull the pity card, like, I win. But, it really did. It brought us together, and we've never had this kind of relationship before. And then, I got to meet amazing people at home. My relationship with my parents have gotten better. And I've met amazing friends since I've come down here. I'm part of a small group, a singles group, and, I met amazing lady, Sarah, who just has adopted me. My friend's Melissa, and she got sick too. So I love people. My friend Melissa, she actually we've been sick buddies for the past year, or past 5 years, goodness. And so, coming home, being able to help her, she had a cancer scare, and being able to be there with her. And so, I've met amazing people, and just, it's been great. I've learned to forgive, come back, and I've learned to grieve. And I think that's also the grace, is I've learned to grieve, and that it's okay to have emotions. It's okay to, there's just been a lot of grace. There's been great weather days. It's been a lot of good. I've met a lot of great people, and I think that's been the biggest grace. So, Southern food.
Yeah.
Southern food.
So I think what you just said is really interesting, that there is a lot to grieve.
Yeah.
You lost a marriage. You'd moved to Connecticut dreaming of the life that you would have together. And even though, you've had CF your whole life, it's not like that's a surprise or a new diagnosis, but you're in a different phase of it now. And your life looks different than it did a year ago. And anything that's different or anything that changes is okay to grieve.
It is, yeah, because I always thought it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that it was because I was a Christian, and a God follower, that I needed to be okay with God. I needed to be happy and joyous and all the time. And it's so not. And I just know the years I spent just I kept things bottled up. And I think it's okay to let yourself feel things. God made us human for a reason.
Right. Or feeling I should be able to handle this. It's no, this is a terrible thing. It's okay to let it be terrible.
Yeah, and so I love telling people that. Part of my testimony is telling people, I got angry. I hate this sometimes. I cry a lot.
How did you choose to live bravely and authentically as a result of all these changes?
I think one thing when it came to my ex was letting myself be patient with the forgiveness process. I think that took a little while. I felt like I need to forgive him right away and, be best friends with him again. And it was just letting myself take the time to forgive him and some things that, were said and done by others. Letting myself forgive me too. Giving myself the grace to learn how I did. Not saying, it was great that I did this, and that to handle the grief, and just be not saying it was a good excuse to go out and do things, but it was, letting myself have the grace to forgive myself. To
if you didn't handle it perfectly, or
exactly, and I think it was putting myself back. I think that was the scariest thing, was actually putting myself back out there. I'm a people person. Obviously, I was doing ballroom dancing for a while, and I love people. But when I came home from the hospital, especially, I had intense social anxiety.
Yeah,
I went to a kid's birthday party and about left crying because I felt like a zoo animal. Just because, people are nice, but, they see someone with oxygen. It's a different thing.
Yep.
And they see a young person with it. It's so funny seeing the old people. I now match with 80-year-olds when I go out.
Yeah, I hear you.
And they look at me like, she's such a rookie. What's she in for,
Yeah.
And so, but, I love to be invisible in a sense. I'm an extroverted introvert or something. So it was, letting myself be okay to get the help to be myself again.
Yeah.
So going to counseling, getting on some anxiety medicine, things like that, just so that I could be myself again and not be afraid of, the new me, because this is the new me, you know, it's
Right.
not who I am, but it is a huge part of me, so I can breathe. It's important.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Getting your lungs to function is a big deal.
And then I started reattending the church that my ex and I went to, actually got married with. And so when I joined a singles group, I feel like that was the biggest thing. I texted my ex that day. I'm like, oh, I'm in singles class again. I'm so mad at you.
Yeah.
But no, it was good though. Like, it's because of that I was able to meet a lot of new great friends and be comfortable again and be okay with my life story, you know, and what's happened, and accepting and putting myself back out there to meet people.
What would you say to encourage someone in a similar situation, both in like handling the divorce situation and in like your health changing?
I'd say don't give up and take your time with whatever it is. That's what I would say. It's just, you're going to want to give up, but on days that you want to give up, give yourself the patience to just disappear to your room. You know, like, don't feel like you have to put on a brave face everywhere. I say just don't give up, but but be patient with yourself too. Mm-hmm. You're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna want to give up. You're not gonna want to do your treatments every day. Like, you know, you're gonna want to just throw the oxygen off, and you know, you're gonna want to call your ex up and, you know, call him when you've had a little too much wine. You know, try not to do that. You know, but but give yourself the grace to breathe and love yourself again. I say learn to love yourself for you. You know, and it sounds so basic, but gosh, we could do a whole nother podcast on like my issues growing up with loving yourself. But through this whole time, I hated myself. You know, I felt like I wasn't worth it. And I still struggle with that on days. I feel like, oh, well, I'm not working in society. I'm useless. You know, but it's love yourself. You are worth loving, like, even through all this. And I think it's also letting yourself be in love with life. Mm-hmm. You know, you don't have to be in love with a spouse, you know, to love life and to be loved. Mm-hmm. You know, true love waits. Like, you know, we always brought the true love waits, you know, don't have sex, and that's what love is. But I feel like love is about, you know, friends, letting friends love you. You know, my dance family back home, when I came home, greeted me with open arms and love. Like, you know, it's letting people love you. Yeah. You need to let yourself love you, and you need to let other people love you. Part of loving others is letting others love you. Yep.
Yeah, so true. And how do you feel like you've chosen to live bravely and authentically?
You know, I go out with my dance family sometimes. Like, we all get together for, like, dinners, and, you know, I'll try to do one dance with them, and I'm, like, you know, smiling like a little girl while everything's falling out of my oxygen, you know, by letting myself... You know, I'm so awkward even when I'm a graceful dancer. You know, I put myself back out there again in life. You know, like I said, I started going to hang out with my dance family again. Started hanging out with, you know, the 20s, 30s group. It's not really a singles group. It's like a 20s, 30s group, you know. Yeah. Kind of put myself not out there to date again, but I do have a nice gentleman that, you know, that is enjoying my time. And so, and I let myself just be honest, I guess, just with myself. And
that's so hard. It's so easy to kind of let ourselves be in denial about just internal things, like what you're feeling or thinking or whatnot.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I think I just live bravely by just choosing to accept, like, okay, I can't work, but I'm worth it. Like, you know, like, I let myself believe that I'm worth it to myself and others.
Yep, absolutely.
You know, I don't let all of my feelings of myself be from others, you know, like from my ex-husband. And also, you know, how I live bravely is that I've learned to accept the decisions my ex made. And I think that was a tough one, but, you know, and it's been through patience and a lot of prayer, a lot of keeping my mouth shut, but I got a wonderful call not too long ago while I was in the hospital, and he was like, I was just calling to apologize for, you know, something in our relationship. And I was like, that, you know, we were able to talk some. It was the first time I feel like it wasn't me bombarding him with, like, questions of why, and I loved you, and, you know, I always wanted, you know, it was... Yeah. And that was something that I hadn't had, and even in our marriage, you know. And so, I mean, and so it was really good just getting, I feel like, just allowing myself to be patient and let him take his time. I like God. Like, one time I just had to pray where I just had to give him to God. And so I think it was just giving him to God, and it's been really neat to see some results of that. So.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to share this part of your story with all of us. It's definitely a brave thing to not know who gets to hear your story, but to share it anyways.
I know. I'm a little scared.
Yeah, I know. I get it.
Battling.
But before we say goodbye, I wanted to ask a couple fun questions so people can get to know you a little bit.
Okay.
So the first is, what are you loving right now?
So I'm reading this book that the 20s 30s group is called Love Does. And oh my gosh, I am in love with that book.
Is that the Bob Goff book?
Yes.
Okay.
Bob Goff Love Does. Right here. I have it beside me. I love it.
Okay, cool. So I'll put a link to that in the show notes so everybody can find it.
Oh my gosh, yes, it is. It's so good. It's so good. Like, it's just like life. It's so good just that love does. Like, it's literally just that love does. Love doesn't just talk. Love is action. Love is words. And that's also helped me to, understand things and how I treat others. So, and how I let others treat me. So.
Yep. And what's your favorite meal or snack or other treat right now?
Well, you asked me on the wrong week because I am on prednisone, which means I am hungry. But right now, it's pretty much all the time it's sushi and Chipotle.
Yum.
Oh, I could eat it all day.
Yeah.
I ate both yesterday. It's true. I have a problem.
There's nothing wrong with either one of those. What are you doing to take care of yourself?
Well, I'm doing my... Okay, now my doctor needs to hear I'm doing all my treatments 3 times a day. Wearing my oxygen. But yeah, so I'm doing that. And, like every day I have the goal of where it's like, I make myself every day. And it sounds pathetic, but I get in the shower and I leave the house for one reason or another.
Yep.
And so that's what I do. And then I'm learning, to take care of myself. I'm learning to be open and honest with people in a way that but in a way that shows kindness, love, and grace. So, I don't just like call out people. It's like, you're stupid. But that's going to sound weird on this podcast. But
no, it's awesome.
That's so me. I can't even hide me.
That's okay. And, you don't have to.
I let myself be me. You know, and that's also true. So it's just to take care of myself. I do what makes me feel happy.
Yep, for sure.
Like I kind of said in the beginning of the year, I'm like, I've officially retired this year. I think, I'm just ready. Like, my birthday's on Sunday, and I'm just almost done. I'm like, I'm just going to take the year 26 off. Like, I'm just going to take it easy.
Yeah. So, well, happy early birthday.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I'm so old.
The last question is, what are you doing to be brave?
Just giving myself permission to love me and love life. Love me, love life, and love God. I think that's what I'm doing to be brave. And I just hope that my life and my actions and my words. And I just hope and pray that, God's love, for those who just doesn't matter who it's for. And so that's what I'm hoping for. And I'm letting myself just be brave and sharing. So,
yeah.
Doing this podcast.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to share with us. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts. While you're there, please rate, review, and share Stories of Unfolding Grace. When you give it 5 stars, it goes a huge way in helping other people find the podcasts by increasing my ranking. If you're interested in sharing your own story of unfolding grace, head to my blog, beckylmccoy.com/submissions. I can't wait to hear from you. Next week on Stories of Unfolding Grace, I'll be talking with Tracy Cassiano. She is an author and blogger and talks about her story of growing up in a dysfunctional home where she was abused as a child and how that affected her adolescence and her adulthood. It's a really great conversation, one that you won't want to miss. Thanks again for joining me. I'm looking forward to next week.